They told me her last word was Mom, and I wasn't there to hear it. Her name was Lily, 6 years old, brown hair, always messy, couldn't sit still. She liked purple socks and pancakes with too much syrup. She had this way of talking to strangers like they were old friends, the kind of child that made people smile without meaning to, and I missed her last breath. I was in traffic when the call came. I remember the ringtone, the number I didn't recognize, and the way my stomach dropped before I even answered. I remember the nurse's voice, steady, too calm, rehearsed. She said it had happened fast. Complications from the infection, she said. We tried everything. Then she added the sentence that tore something permanent in me. She called, "For you." I didn't answer, just hung up. Or maybe the phone fell. I don't remember. What I remember is sitting behind the wheel, staring at the steering wheel like it would tell me what to do next. I didn't cry. Not yet. Not then. I was too numb, too shocked, too late. Lily had been sick for 3 days, just a fever at first, then a rash. Then she started slurring her words. I took her in thinking it was strep, maybe the flu. The hospital admitted her for observation, but no one looked worried. I went home that night, kissed her on the forehead, told her I'd be back first thing in the morning. "I'll bring your purple bear," I promised, "the one with the broken ribbon." She smiled barely. That was the last smile I saw. I should have stayed. God, I should have stayed. They called me at 4:47 a.m. I missed it. I was asleep on the couch, phone on silent, thinking I had more time. The second call came at 5:12. That one, I answered. And by the time I got there, she was gone. A nurse, middle-aged, kind eyes, soft voice, said. She didn't seem scared. She just whispered one word. "Mom," like she thought you were right outside the door. I nodded, thanked her, and walked past without saying anything else. When I saw her, my knees gave out. She looked like she was still sleeping, still warm, still mine. I reached for her hand, but it was already cooling. Her bear, the one I brought too late, sat beside her on the blanket, ribbon still torn, same as me. I think about that one word every day. Mom. Not help, not hurts, just Mom. Like I could have made it better. Like she still believed I could fix things with a hug and a silly voice and a song she'd forgotten all the words to. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She called for me, and I failed her. I wasn't there. And no matter what anyone says, no doctor, no priest, no well-meaning friend, I know the truth that I have to live with. She died thinking I was coming, and I didn't. The funeral was 3 days later. I don't remember most of it. People came. Too many. Faces I hadn't seen in years. Coworkers, neighbors, women from the school drop-off line. They brought flowers and casseroles and whispered words that didn't land. She was such a bright soul. She's in a better place. She knew you loved her. I nodded, smiled sometimes. I think I even said thank you once or twice, but I wasn't there. Not really. My body sat in the front pew. My hands clutched the program with her picture on it. My mouth stayed shut. Inside, all I could hear was one word. Mom. That tiny voice. Fragile. Hopeful. She still had hope even at the end. And I let her die with that hope unanswered. After the service, they buried her with the bear. I made sure of it. Some suggested I keep it. A memory, they said. But I couldn't. I didn't want a reminder of something I'd forgotten to bring, when it mattered most. So I tucked it beside her one last time, pressed my fingers to the ribbon and walked away without looking back. I went home and didn't open the door for a week. People kept showing up, dropping off food, leaving cards. I let everything rot. I didn't want comfort. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted time. A second chance. One more hour. Even a minute. Anything. Instead, I had silence. And that single word echoing louder with each passing night. Mom. She said it believing I'd answer, and I didn't. My sister came by the 8th day, used the spare key, walked in like she always used to, confident, bossy, kind. She didn't ask how I was. She just started cleaning. She took the trash out, opened windows, washed dishes I hadn't touched. Then she sat across from me and slid a small box onto the table. I went through Lily's school bag, she said. Found this. I didn't want to open it. She waited. Eventually, I lifted the lid. Inside were drawings. Crayon. Scribbles. Bright colors. One showed a stick figure. Girl holding hands with a taller figure wearing a triangle dress. The names were written above. Lily. Mom. Tears came slow at first, then full. I hadn't cried at the hospital. Not at the funeral. Not once since the call. But sitting there, holding that stupid crayon drawing, it hit me. She didn't draw me crying, or angry, or absent. She drew me beside her. That's how she saw me. Even if I wasn't there at the end. In her mind, I always had been. That gave me breath again. Not peace. Not forgiveness. But breath. And sometimes, that's enough to keep moving. The first time I entered her room after the funeral, I lasted 7 seconds. That's how long I stood in the doorway before my legs locked and my chest started caving in. Her bed was still unmade, blankets tangled just like the morning she got sick, stuffed animals piled in the corner, socks, purple of course, hanging from the edge of a drawer she never closed properly. It looked exactly like she left it, like she might walk back in and scold me for snooping. I closed the door and didn't go back for another week. When I finally forced myself inside again, I did it with a notebook in one hand and a pen in the other. I didn't know why. Maybe I thought writing something down would help me control the ache. Maybe I was just desperate to do something. I sat on the edge of her bed, picked up one of her dolls, the one with the missing button eye, and wrote the words, "You called for me." Then I sat there in silence for what felt like hours. Flipped to the next page and wrote, "I didn't come." That second sentence broke me again, but I kept writing. Every memory, every fight, every time I told her, "Not now," or "Maybe later." Every moment I let pass, thinking there'd always be another. Because I think what no one tells you is that guilt doesn't come in one big wave. It comes in pieces. Little memories. Stupid regrets. Like how I scolded her the night before the hospital for putting syrup on the couch. Or how I told her, "Let's do bedtime stories tomorrow," and rushed to answer work emails instead. I wrote it all down. I filled 23 pages before the pen ran out of ink. The next day, I read, every page aloud, to her empty room, to the bear she didn't get to hold that night, to the purple sock still draped over her chair. I don't know what I expected. Forgiveness, maybe. Or some invisible shift in the air to let me know she heard. But all I got was the creak of the floorboard and the ache in my chest. Still, I kept reading, until the end. On the last page I wrote something new. I will never forgive myself, but I will remember you better, and I will never let the world forget your name. That was the first promise I made that didn't feel like a lie. Because I couldn't change what happened, but I could change what came next. I started with a shoebox. Not a memorial, not some grand project. Just a plain box I found in the closet. Old, dusty, filled with junk mail and tangled cords. I dumped it out and began collecting pieces of her. Not ashes, not footprints. Life. A spelling test, with a gold star. A birthday card she made for me last year. The one with, "You're the best cooker, Mom," scribbled in glitter pen. Her favorite hair clip. The yellow one shaped like a cat, cracked at the edge from when she dropped it in the driveway. One by one, I placed them in the box. Not to forget. Not to move on. Just to have something to hold when the grief felt too big to carry. By the end of the week, the box was full, but it didn't feel like enough, because memories are heavy when they only live in your head, and guilt is louder when you keep it quiet. So I started talking. Not to people. Not yet. To Lily. At first, just small things. "Good morning, baby." Made pancakes again. Burned them like always. "Your teacher sent a letter. They miss you too." And, then slowly I said the one thing I hadn't been able to say aloud. "I'm sorry." It came out rough. Tight. Barely a whisper. But it was real. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I didn't expect it. I just needed to say it. Like scratching a name into stone. One morning, I found her voice again. Not in a dream. In my voicemail. A message I hadn't known was still there. From a month before she got sick, she was at school borrowing her teacher's phone. "Hi, Mommy. I miss you. Guess what? I got 2 stars today. Not 1. 2. Also, I love you. A lot. Okay. Bye." It played in her tiny, excited voice. Loud. Proud. Alive. I played it 6 times before I realized I was sobbing. That one message became my lifeline. I listened to it every night, like a ritual, like brushing my teeth or locking the door. It was a reminder, not of what I lost, but of who she was. Joyful, bright, bursting with love I'd forgotten how to receive, and even though her last word was Mom, I knew that this message, this little moment in time, was her real goodbye. She loved me, even when I wasn't there, even when I didn't show up in time. She still loved me, and that truth, it hurt, but it also healed. Just a little. That's when I knew I couldn't keep her to myself anymore. The world needed to know her, not as a child who died, but as a girl who lived. I opened a social media account under her name. Not really hers. She was too young for that. But something small, simple. A page to share her smile, her drawings, her stories. I called it Lily Was Here. The first post was a photo of her grinning, front teeth missing, holding a pancake like it was a trophy. The caption read, "She called me Mom. I didn't hear it in time, but I'll make sure the world does." I didn't expect much. Maybe a few likes from distant friends, maybe silence, but people responded, first in whispers, then in waves. Mothers, fathers, teachers, nurses, they shared stories of their own losses, their own missed moments, their own guilt. They didn't pity me, they saw me, and more importantly, they saw her. Lily became a name people spoke with warmth. They drew pictures of her based on my posts. One woman sent a digital painting, Lily as a superhero, cape flying, purple socks over her shoes. I cried for an hour after that. She was alive again. In pixels, in memory, in hearts beyond mine. That page became my second voice. I posted about her love of frogs, how she used to name them even if they were plastic, how she once told a librarian, "Books are like snacks for your brain," how she insisted her bear got a kiss before she did every night. These weren't milestones. They were the tiny, beautiful crumbs that make a life real. And in telling them, I started to believe I hadn't lost everything. I had lost her, yes, but not her story, not her laughter, not her favorite songs or her silly dances or the way she'd say, "Excuse me" 5 times in a row until you answered. That stuff, it was still mine to carry, and now, it was ours to share. One night, a woman messaged me privately. She said she'd been planning to leave her husband, that she'd been overwhelmed, exhausted, numb. Then she read about Lily, read how much I missed. Just one word, and she stopped. She sat down with her daughter that night, ate a cereal on the couch, watched cartoons, didn't look at her phone once. "I remembered what mattered," she wrote, "because you reminded me, because Lily reminded me." I stared at that message for a long time. It didn't fix anything. It didn't bring Lily back, but it meant something. My daughter's life, short, imperfect, interrupted, had reached someone, had changed something, had mattered. That's when I understood. Even though I missed her last word, I could make sure the world never missed who she was. The school called me in mid-April. Lily's teacher, Mrs. Garland, had been following the Lily Was Here page quietly, said she read each post out loud to her new class, one a week, like they were stories from a book no one else had. "They laugh," she told me on the phone. "They ask questions." One student said, "It's like Lily still comes to class but she's invisible." I didn't know how to respond to that. Part of me wanted to cry. Another part wanted to hang up and sit in silence. But then she said, "We want to name the new reading corner after her if you're okay with it." I said yes. I didn't hesitate. I went to the school a week later. Everything looked the same. The hallway where Lily used to run ahead of me, her locker with the faded unicorn sticker, the front office where she'd wait for me with a popsicle, stick prize clenched in her fist. When I walked into the classroom, the kids all stared at me, quiet, curious. Then one girl, small, with messy hair like Lily's, stood and said, "You're Lily's mom." Not a question, a statement. I nodded. She walked over, holding something behind her back. "I drew this," she said, handing me a paper. It was Lily. Stick figure, purple socks, a big smile, and beside her, another figure with a heart on its chest. "This is you," the girl said. I blinked fast. My voice shook. "Thank you." Then Mrs. Garland led me to the corner, a soft rug, a few beanbags, a shelf of Lily's favorite books, Frog and Toad, Amelia Bedelia, and that one about the bear who couldn't find his hat. Above the shelf, a wooden plaque, Lily's Corner, where books smile back. I laughed through tears. That was something Lily would have said, probably had. One boy raised his hand. Is it true she made up songs about cereal? I nodded. She had a whole one about raisins. They giggled. I told them her favorite joke. The one about the cow that couldn't stop talking. They roared. In that moment, Lily wasn't gone. Not really. She was in the laughter. The drawings, the shelf, the space between the words they were too young to say but somehow already understood. As I left, Mrs. Garland handed me a folder. Letters from the kids, all handwritten. Crayon, pencil, marker. Each one ended the same way. Tell Lily we miss her. Tell her she's our friend. Tell her we'll keep reading. I clutched that folder like it was a heartbeat, because it was. Because somehow my daughter had done what death never could. She had stayed. I didn't sleep that night, not because of sadness, though that never really leaves, but because of everything I read in that folder. One boy wrote, I told my little sister about Lily. She wants to be brave like her. A girl added, if Lily was here, I would let her borrow my markers. One letter in shaky, oversized handwriting simply said, thank you for not letting her disappear. That one stuck in my chest because that had been my greatest fear, that Lily would fade, that people would forget the sound of her name, that her voice, her jokes, her laugh would dissolve into some quiet past no one ever visited. But now, kids who never met her were reading for her, talking to her, drawing pictures of her, keeping her here. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and pulled out the notebook again. Not the grief notebooks, a new one, clean pages, no apologies, no regrets. This one was for her. Dear Lily, I wrote, you won't believe what happened today. And I told her about the kids, the reading corner, the girl who gave me the drawing. I told her how they laughed at her cereal song, how they asked if she liked frogs more than dinosaurs. I told her how proud I was, how loud she'd become in a world that tried to make her quiet. I wrote 5 pages, then 6 more. I didn't stop until the sun came up, and for the first time in months I didn't feel broken when I put the pen down. I felt connected, still grieving, still hurting, but connected. The next morning, I opened the Lily Was Here page and posted an idea. If you've read about Lily and she's meant something to you, draw her, write her a letter, show me how she's stayed alive in your world. Didn't know what I expected, but what I got was more than I could have ever imagined. Dozens of replies in hours, then hundreds. Some drew her flying through clouds with a book in her hand. Others wrote poems, short stories, comics. One video came from a boy in Canada reading to an empty chair beside him. He said, "This is for Lily. She always gets a turn." And that's when I knew she wasn't just mine anymore. She belonged to all of them now. To the children who saw her as brave, to the parents who held their kids tighter, to the strangers who remembered her name like it was someone they knew. And somehow through their stories she was living a new chapter. One I never expected. One she never got to write, but one I would carry. Every page, every line, every word, until my last breath. I started printing every message, every drawing, every letter. It took 3 boxes, not folders, not digital backups. I wanted paper, ink, something I could touch. I labeled the top box, Lily's Echo, because that's what it felt like. Not a memorial, not a tribute, an echo. The kind that doesn't fade, even after the sound's gone. Every night, I picked a handful to read before bed. I'd lay them out on the kitchen table, touch each one with my fingers like I was tracing her through their words. Some were funny, some heartbreaking, but all of them real. One came from a woman in her 60s. I never had children, never thought I'd feel that connection. Then I read about Lily. I talk to her now, like she's mine, like I was supposed to know her in another life. Another from a teacher. I have a student who stopped speaking after losing her brother. She started whispering to the photo of Lily we keep in the reading corner. Today she spoke out loud. First time in months. That one nearly wrecked me, because Lily's voice, the one I never got to hear at the end, was helping someone else find theirs. Never thought a 6-year-old girl with messy hair and purple socks could leave something so lasting. But she did. She wasn't just missed. She was changing people. One night I set up a table in the hallway outside her room, laid out drawings, notes, and photos. Not for a display. For her. If Lily had been alive, she would have dragged every neighbor into the house to see them. So I made the space exactly how she'd like it. Colorful, loud, joyful. Above it, I pinned a sign. Lily's wall of, brave. Not because she died bravely, but because she lived that way every silly moment, every question, every crooked tooth smile. Brave isn't always battlefields. Sometimes it's a child singing off-key in the back seat, or walking into the first day of school without holding anyone's hand, or whispering "Mom" even when no one answers. That was Lily. That was what she left behind. And now, it was being mirrored in all these lives she never touched, at least not with her hands, only with her story. I lit a candle beside the display that night, not for tradition, for light, because her light was still here, through these drawings, through these voices, through these hearts. And I knew, deep down, that even though I wasn't there when she said that last word, she wasn't alone. Because love, even the kind filled with guilt and regret, follows, even into silence, even past goodbye. I was asked to speak at a parent grief group the following month. I didn't want to, not because I couldn't talk about Lily. I did that every day, but because I didn't want to sit in a room full of broken mothers and fathers, all drowning in the same kind of pain. Part of me thought, what good are words when they didn't save her? But I went anyway. The room was small. 10 chairs. A circle. No Kleenex in sight. Just raw, hollowed-out people clinging to photos like oxygen masks. I didn't bring notes. Just a printed picture of Lily holding her pancake like a trophy. I stood in the center and said, I missed her last word. That got their attention. I wasn't there. She called for me, and I wasn't. There. No one blinked. No one flinched. They understood. Every single one of them. And then I told them everything. The voicemail, the drawing, the shoebox, the purple socks, the reading corner at her school, the wall in our hallway, the letters from strangers, the boy in Canada, the girl who gave up her markers. How Lily had become more than a child lost. She had become a reason to remember. Not just her, but all of them. Every child in that room who wasn't coming home again. Every moment we missed. Every breath we thought we'd get more of. After I finished, a woman stood up. She was shaking. She said, my daughter died in my arms, and I still feel like I failed her. Then she looked at me and said, but maybe it's not about how they left. Maybe it's about what we do now that they're gone. I nodded, because she was right. Grief doesn't end. But it can move. It can become something. A wall of brave. A voice in a silent classroom. A letter from a stranger. A story whispered in a candle-lit hallway. That night I posted a photo of the grief group circle. No names, no faces, just the chairs. The caption read, every one of those chairs held a parent with a hole in their chest. But every one of them stood when the meeting ended. That's what brave looks like. People shared it, commented, sent prayers, sent stories, and once again Lily's name became the thread that stitched people together. She was never forgotten. She was gathered, by hearts she never met, by hands she never held, by the very love I thought had died with her. But it hadn't, it had just changed form. It's been 1 year, 12 months without her laugh, 365 days without her small hand in mine, a full calendar of mornings where her chair at the table stayed empty. And still, she's everywhere. In the mail, a crayon drawing from a child in Belgium who read her story in class. In a school newsletter, a principal announcing Lily's Corner will now be added to 2 more classrooms. In a bakery, a woman handed me a cupcake with a purple flower on top and said, it just felt like her. She lives in all of it. I didn't know a name could echo this far, but Lily's did. Not because she was famous, not because she was here long, but because she was loved, and that love refused to sit quietly. Not anymore. Tonight, I sat on the floor with the 3 boxes full of letters, drawings, and messages. It took me hours to go through them again. I cried. I smiled. I whispered thank you more times than I can count. Then I opened the notebook, the second one, the one where I wrote to her, and I added one more letter. Dear Lily, you called for me and I wasn't there, but I've been listening ever since. And because of you, others are listening now too. You've reminded people to say I love you before they leave the room, to put their phones down, to sit closer, to show up. That was always your superpower, wasn't it? Making people feel seen, even in silence. So tonight, on your day, I don't say goodbye. I say, I'm here now, and I will never stop telling them about you. You didn't get a full life, but you gave one to me. I love you, always. Mom, I closed the book, kissed the cover, and placed it beside the boxes. Not an ending, just another chapter. If you're still reading this, maybe you needed her too. So here's what I ask of you. Write her name once. Tell someone her story. Say, I love you before the next goodbye. And if you felt something, anything, reading this, drop a single word below. Here. Not for me, for her. So she knows wherever she is, that someone heard her voice, even if it came one breath too late. If Lily's story touched even the smallest part of your heart, comment one word below. Here. Let her know someone heard her. Someone still stands. Share this story with someone who needs to remember what truly matters. You never know who's waiting to hear a voice that says, you're not alone. And if you're the kind of soul who believes some names should never fade, subscribe. Because stories like this don't just deserve to be told. They deserve to be carried.